Hi, everybody. My name is David Claristenfeld. I'm a principal with Clarence House. Welcome today. We apologize for the delay in starting, but we've got some technical issues. It looks like it's Alexa and David K. and Danica today. Alexa, thank you. I really appreciate you being with us today. Just a little bit about what we're trying to do with this programming. We're trying to show Clarence House through the 80s, through the 90s, through the aughts and the 10s and the 20s, and really showing what has developed through these years, through these decades, since when Clarence House started 60 years ago. We are really thrilled to have this beautiful opportunity. Oh, I see Garrow popping up.
I'm so
there
sorry,
you are,
guys.
Garrow. I love you.
To get that set up.
Awesome. We are thrilled to have this amazing opportunity to present the whole new world of Clarence House to a whole new young generation of people who have not been around for the last 60 years, as well as people who have been around and been using Clarence House throughout these decades. And now it looks like we're getting everybody on board. One thing I do want to note, hey, we got everybody, hooray. One thing I do want to note, we are all in different places. I actually am in Dubai right now. Alexa and Garrow in New York. Elaine, you're in Georgia, right?
Peach State representing.
There you go. We're all over the world. Danica is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we're bringing you Clarence House into the 80s right now. One thing I just want to note before we start, Fabricut took over Clarence House 2 years ago and minus a year and a half of COVID, really half a year ago. And we've been through these years, through these last 2 years, we really tried to keep the integrity of the brand as much as we possibly could. And we know through these last couple of years and years previous to us taking over the brand, there were some changes that had been made in the product lineup. We hope you're loving the stuff that's coming out. But one thing we really want you to note is that we look at the past, and that's what all these looking into the decades is about. And we know that there have been lots and lots of patterns that have been wonderful patterns in the past that are no longer part of the line. And we would love any comments that you have. Send them to danica.jones@clarencehouse.com at fabricut.com so that we can set any designs that you've known through the years that you've loved through Clarence House. We love your thoughts, and hopefully through these years in the future, we'll be able to add additional product that has been in the line for years. Okay, that's my speech about Clarence House. I am introducing Garrow, who's going to be leading us today. Garrow's hello. Garrow's a classically trained architectural background and foundation, the most interior design work, stating that architecture is what sets the tone and tells you what you need to do with the space. Thank you, Garrow, for saying that. Garrow has been published in so many magazines, can't even begin to start telling you where they are. He's been in House Beautiful, Art Digest, Elle Décor. He has participated twice in Kips Bay, and most recently in 2016, where his Napoleon Lounge has received the acclaim distinctive chalk paneling design and was featured in the New York Times. Garrow is a regular on Open House New York. I love watching him on Sunday morning with my daughter. And we love, and he's including featuring his beautiful apartment on Park Avenue, which I think he's sitting in right now.
I am.
And we just want to thank you all for participating today. Garrow, I'm going to let you take it away with Alexa and Elaine. Thank you all for participating, and thank you for being patient with us while we tried to get our act together this evening.
Thank you,
Garrow,
David.
it's all yours.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor, actually, to be selected as the panel, discussion panel here, and it's wonderful to be moderating this with two of my iconic design colleagues. And Clarence House has long since been one of my personal favorite showrooms. And when I was a peon working for William Hodgins, our first stop at the D&D building was always Clarence House. And so I have very fond memories of vintage Clarence House. And I have to tell you guys, you're doing a great job. And I'm so excited to hear that you might resurrect some fabric that that we might want to resurrect. So I'm here today with two amazing designers. Interior designer Alexa Hampton. She took the Alexa. She took the reins of her father's iconic firm, Mark Hampton, and as owner and as president since 1998. She advanced its legacy of elegant, practical, classically based interiors for modern living. And she's regularly named for Architectural Digest 80/100 House Beautiful Top Designer list, as well as Elle Decor A-list. Hampton translates the classical principles of good design and decoration into some of today's most elegant, enduring, and functional domestic landscapes. And she is absolutely fabulous as a human being. I love her. Also love Elaine Griffin. She's also amazing. Interior designer Elaine Griffin believes that a person's, hello, how are you, darling? Believes that a person's home, it reveals so much about them, and that is absolutely true. She was a cast member and third place winner of NBC's 2014 primetime design competition reality show, American Dream Builders, hosted by Nate Berkus, which was a fabulous series. I love that. Elaine is also the author of the best-selling Design Rules, The Insider's Guide to Becoming Your Own Decorator. Elaine is also ranked as one of House Beautiful's top 100.
You can stop there or we'll be here all day.
She is awesome. They're both awesome. So today, I guess what we're doing is we're sort of celebrating, Clarence House. And as I said, I've been in the business a lot longer than I might look. It's all the plastic surgery I've had. But when I was a little peon working for William Hodgins, Clarence House was our go-to. All of our baseline fabrics were from Clarence House. And whenever we came, Mr. Hodgins' office was in Boston, and we would come to New York, and the first stop every time we would get off the plane and go directly to Clarence House. So a lot of favorites of fabrics there that have endured the test of time, and they're of course still available. Some have been discontinued, but we're going to try and resurrect those. And I was so honored when they approached me and asked me to help them, do a little bit of a celebration. So we did a little mood board for the 1980s. And of course, the 1980s is sort of the era when I was growing up. And, it was an interesting time in design. It was a lot of color, a lot of sort of edgy, colorful work that was done in the 1980s. So I think we'll lead right into some of our questions. So Alexa and Elaine, tell us how your window vignette, sorry, that's actually my window vignette, sorry. Let's talk about the key trends. Which do you remember most from the 1980s era? Elaine, we'll start with you.
Oh my gosh, the 80s in design were just, it was a seminal period. If you, I'm muted. Do I have to unmute? Am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
No.
I can hear you.
I have to turn this down. Hold on. Technical situation here. Can somebody mute my other line? Because I'm on my phone and my laptop. So if somebody could mute the other ones, we'd be good. And just keep my phone this one. In any case, because I don't see back. If you read my quote, the 80s are to decor what the 70s were to the sexual revolution.
Wow.
They changed free love. It was a game changer. The 80s opened the possibility of people because with all the upward mobility and the conspicuous consumption, people were actually for the first time taking control of the narrative that their house said, their design said, as opposed to just going and buying furniture, which I know most people's parents, if you're not a millennial, did. So it was the first time people did things themselves, decorated themselves, and personalized their spaces. The 80s changed everything.
Absolutely, completely agree. How do you think our lifestyles changed since then, and how has that changed our homes? What has remained the same? What has changed?
I'm gonna let Alexa take that.
Okay. Well,
because she has kids.
No. Well, I started working for my father in 1984 when I was 13, and I worked for him every summer there onward.
Wow.
And I think that the 80s were really when our clients and people who were having designers work on their house were choosing from various histories. You know, did they want it to be French? Did they want it to be English? There was a play aspect to it, a dress up aspect, and it was so exuberant.
Absolutely,
And so,
like almost fantasy. It was like
total fantasy. No, the idea of being quote unquote appropriate was loosened, and I think that to Elaine's point about mobility and projecting who you want to be, all of that came into it. And so I think the biggest thing though that has changed from the 80s is perhaps the palette. If everything is a dialectic, right, of thesis, antithesis, the thesis statement of the 80s was bold, brash, electric, day glow, chintz, pinks, swags, furbelows, and then the aughts, which were really, the 90s were pretty much the 80s, and then mid-century modern came in. So it was thesis and antithesis, and now we're both maximalist and modern and sleek.
Right.
But it was a great piece of theater, the 80s.
Well, how did your parents decorate there in the 1980s? That's an interesting question.
Well, it was chintz. It was
lots of swags.
Not tons of swags, but it was actually the living room, which is the room that changed the most. It changed every decade, 70, 80, 90. It was the same chintz, bowwood, used on everything. So it was the room that was treated like a 12 room. Right. So there was some strictness to it, but it was our version of over the top of
Elaine,
English country on Park Avenue.
You know, what's fascinating is I don't know if everyone knows that Mark Hampton used to work for David Hicks.
It was his first,
Was that his first job?
That was his first job. He was at the London School of Economics doing a junior year abroad in college. And he knocked on David's door and said, "I'd love to work for you, Mr. Hicks." And David said, "Come back in a month and you're hired." So that was super exciting. And as you can imagine, in that era, David Hicks was, if we're looking at the 80s,
right.
If we're looking at the 80s, you got to then see what preceded it in the 70s.
Right.
So this gusto, this muscular, wild trajectory that the 80s went on was a response to the other version of the 70s. In our living room in that era, it was oxblood painted walls and a tar painting and all black and white Hicks upholstery.
Fabulous. And what about matching florals?
What?
What about matching florals? That was a thing in the 80s.
That to me is still a no-no unless you're in France.
Really?
But a French bedroom is always the one fabric, like one done and done and done and done.
Well, that's exactly what I meant about the living room being treated as though like a 12 room. It was that same bowwood on everything.
Right.
And I gotta say, coming up in that moment, seeing it as being exposed to it and paying attention, having that be the real first time I was paying attention to it as a profession, even though I was a kid, it has never been far away from my head. For me, it's like eating a meal that your parents serve you as a child and having nostalgia and love for it. That's how I feel about those 80s rooms.
Interesting. What do you feel like your cultural influences from that time period, like the things that you take with you from the 1980s, like the lasting details in design?
The ability to embrace fantasy. Mm-hmm. So in my mock-up of a window, it's all empire and the monuments of Egypt, which was their great Toile de Jouy, that I actually upholstered a room in my apartment in the 2000s. Yeah. And the leopard and remember the satins they had with the bees. and the Dragon Empress is in the foreground on
Yes,
the
which I
curtains.
love. I love that fabric.
Right.
Yeah, it was, you know, this close to gaudy, but not. I hope.
Ah,
Elaine, have you ever used any of the ideas from the 1980s in your rooms of today?
you know what? I always say that a person's design philosophy is a combination of four things: where you're from, where
Mhm.
you've been,
Mm-hmm.
where you're at. I know it's bad grammar. I know that. And where you're going. And so those are realistic things. If you grow up in a house that is like really, you know, floral and like, oh, you can't deal with it. Those are the people who really become like, you know, minimalists.
Minimalist, sure.
You know,
Yeah.
two color palette, maybe three, add gray, like the minimalists, because they hated their home in Wisconsin that they grew up in with awful florals. Either home, you either embrace it or you, hold on, somebody's calling. You either embrace it or you don't.
Yeah,
So,
I totally agree with that. I mean, I grew up, my parents were super modern minimalists. So of course I'm like, embrace color,
right,
pattern, texture, everything.
right. And my ex-husband, who's a psychoanalyst, could have a lot of questions with that, but we're just going to leave it there for right now. Yeah, but it's either a love or a not love. So, you know, the 80s are still with us today. And I think that that's because, you know, it's a time of comfort, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You have, after the 80s, we had, you know, the mid-century modern moment in the 90s. And what that did, I think, was, because it wasn't the same thing as the mid-century modern moment that we kind of had before, which would maybe might have been like more 50s, 60s than actually 70s.
Well, the actual mid-century.
Right.
The origin.
Yeah. Right. So, you know, we've seen it was like this palette cleansing moment, like, and everything is seen through that parameter. Even the frou-frou-iness, you know, room designs that, like, you know, a young person in Charleston might do, and, you know, they love ruffles down there. And so it's forever cleansed through that palette. You know, I always say it's kind of like if Louis XIV could marry what's the guy from Dunbar, Edward Wormsley, that's and then, like, you know, Louis Counts. And so that's where we are right now decoratively, and being able to do that is because we have the 80s.
Yes, agreed. And what do you think should forever be buried from the 1980s design?
Glass blocks.
Oh, I'm totally with you, Elaine.
Agreed.
Totally with you.
That's unanimous.
And
That's unanimous.
the color scheme was often horrendous. But Clarence House was kind of epicenter of great taste. You walked in, there were always playing the Brandenburg Concerto. You had to, it was the only showroom, please, Percy, it's the only showroom you had to, that's my dog, actually go to the front desk and give them the account number, even though they'd seen you every day for the month
And
preceding.
remember that wonderful lady that was at the front desk? What was her name? She was awesome.
I
She
don't
would say
remember.
hello.
I don't remember.
It's Lee, and she's still there.
Oh, good.
Has
And-
she been there since the 80s? Oh, she's such a sweetheart.
Yeah, but also, like, you knew Robin was bringing in the very best, and I have to say, David, thank you and Fabricut for the commitment to keeping it alive, and to the fact that you're going to be reissuing things will give it a chance. Sorry, my son keeps. I am so sorry. The fact that you're reissuing things gives people a moment to rediscover and fall in love again. And that's an important part of threading these moments and these decades together. They can't just disappear forever. And so, anyway, so thank you, David. It's huge.
Well, it's not me,
Big
it's all
deal.
Kazumi and Nina, and they look at both the past and the future when they create their designs for Clarence
Yes.
House.
Right.
And while Kazumi and Nina are actually drafting beautiful images for new designs, they're
Right.
always looking to the past as well. We're just about to bring back an old pattern called arts and crafts, which is something that had
Which
been
is one
beloved
of
for
my
many, many years.
absolute, and one of my favorite, actually, hold on a second. Let
She
me-
must have it in her house as a pillow.
I do.
Yes,
I've got it right here.
Kazumi's work is unbelievable. He is such a visionary, and he really knows how to
Here-
sort of.
here it
hone
is.
There it is. There it is. Yes, I actually
One
have
of my
that wallpaper
all-time
here.
favorites.
I love that.
It's
Fabulous.
got columns and oh, I was holding it upside down. Columns and birds and
Gorgeous.
arches. I mean,
Love
it's
that.
it's a tour de force.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was, you know, or just think of the Marlboro stripe wallpaper that we would all use.
Yes.
Nobody had gaufrage the way Clarence House had gaufrage. The horsehair. I mean, there's so many lessons
And
to
the
be
fringe
learned
trim. The
walking.
fringe trim. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
The best
be-
fringe
oh,
trim ever. Clarence House. Mr. Hodgins'
Yeah.
box of fringes was all Clarence House. It was the best. Absolutely love that. Who do you think the most influential designers are from the era and why? Elaine,
she's
what do you think?
biased, you know. So, you know, obviously, when I heard who I was with today, I said, well, obviously Alexa's going to, you know, do her dad. And then for my little,
Yeah.
right. So that means that I had no other choice for mine than to be inspired by Mario Buono, who what really was,
Perfect.
you
The
know,
quintessential
right?
go-to 1980s. Absolutely.
They were like
yes.
freaking frack. I did Christmas trees one year at Blair House, and Barry Dar Dixon was down there, and Martha Stewart did a room. We don't talk about that, but the head usher, I guess you call him the general manager, what had been there when they redid it, and he asked about everyone. He remembered my friend Scott. He remembered Beth that used to like work for, was it your dad? But he remembered all the people.
Who?
He's like, where are they? Beth. Did Beth Bartel work for your dad? Or was
No. Paula,
Okay, so she was at
Paula
Mario.
Perlini was on Blair House with him.
Okay. But he remembered all the people, which
Yeah.
was so cool to like go down there. So my space is really truly, and by the way, can we see the space? Yoo-hoo! Thank you. I'm watching the time, something I never do. So this is a preview because I'm going to be on the Clarence House Instagram, hopefully this Friday. We'll let you know.
Fabulous.
Showing you the real thing for like a reels or a takeover. So this is my room that's inspired, that you'll see on Friday for the Grand Denouement. And it's inspired, look up, it's inspired by Mario's own apartment. And you know, I went digitally shopping. I love doing digital vignettes because, you know, you have no budget. And as long as it exists in, you know, 300 DPI or higher, it's like yours. So you'll see that, you know, we have, it's number one, there's something I'm pointing up because Mario always said that the ceiling was the fifth wall and too many people forgot about it, right? So he said, look up, and we found a great Clarence House sisal. Did you know that Clarence House has sisal? Wallpaper, I am here. Grass cloth, I am here to tell you it's in the house. So we put this great grass cloth from CH on it. I'm inspired by an artist I found in the Hamptons, who you will see a lot of. And also a wonderful rug from Hakimian that belonged to Babe Paley.
Fabulous. Wonderful.
That was a rug at Kaluna. And so it is amazing. There's tons.
I love that you have the red tassel trim there.
Isn't it the best color? That's
The
going to be
best.
on a curtain. That's going to be on a curtain.
Gorgeous.
And you'll see, I'm all about mixing. So you can see that we mix. Look at that. Can I just show you that? Look, hold
Yeah.
on.
I think
Beautiful.
Clarence House taught us about deco palettes
Right.
and those bold prints, those bold woven prints.
Right.
I don't think I understood them until I saw them displayed
Right.
at Clarence House. And then I understood. I was like, okay, I get that.
This is Casbah, and it's so, I feel like I'm on HSN. This is Casbah. It's amazing. So you see this, and then so I'm going to upholster the walls based on my my stitched artwork from Bastian Schmidt. That's her name. I forgot. Bastian Schmidt, who's in the Hamptons, a fabulous artist, does amazing geometric things that are just gorgeous. So I'm going to be reinterpreting that in the Clarence House velvet, and then shop, right? And then shopping some more digitally from Mario's thing. So it's going to be a really very, very 80s. And hope, can someone please go to Hakimi and buy Babe Paley's rug? Somebody, Garrow, you have a client for that. It's good. So
maybe I might.
Right? Who knew that they even had that? So we're going to be just mixing it up with, you know, a very fun palette. And then also my new favorite thing in the world, the Clarence House grass cloths. So well, I'll see you guys Friday on Instagram with you.
Excellent. Make sure to check that out. People are starting to say that the 1980s was the last great period of creativity in the interior design. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely
and if
not.
No.
Yes, I don't agree with that.
We can't give up. Let's hope we will continue to be creative, but it was creative, but it was also historical. It was creativity based upon big, bold movements in history, whether it was Empire or Georgian or Chance or whatever. And now I just think we live differently. The 80s was perhaps the last time when staff was a consideration.
Right.
When working for a client, you had to understand that they'd have a back of house. And that's what's gone away. And I'm not going to lament that.
Right. Yeah.
Because, it's, you know, pie in the sky weirdness.
How do you think we're going to look back on today's decorating and what influenced us?
Well, with the rise of maximalism, I think that we can absolutely point our finger to the 80s and look at Mongiardino and et al. There's a lot to be excited about right this moment that refers back to it. And that's why I'm so glad that David and Fabricat are reissuing these things at Clarence House. Because our audience has arrived back.
Right.
I think it goes back to sustainability, and, you know, good design stands the test of time. And for me, you know, a lot of what Clarence House has put out there over the decades, especially in the 1980s, where they were the most creative and more edgy, have really stood the test of time, which is why we lament things that get discontinued, David.
Things only get discontinued if they're not bought. If something lies on a wing, it doesn't make
Alexa's my business partner here. That's
Yes.
exactly true.
If we want the fabrics to stay, then we have to purchase them in quantity.
She's a person you can see who does business in North Carolina. You can see she's a total. We're like, is it cute? She's like, how many did we sell, honey?
Yeah,
exactly.
But I've had also, as somebody who has a fabric line as well, or a furniture line, when something of mine goes the way of the dodo, I have to remind myself, even if I have a love for it, why would I want something to take the place of something that would sell? So I think the Clarence House timing on this is just perfect, because there is this great hunger for pattern and history and, you know, document patterns.
Absolutely. I think there's a definite revival. And, you know, people are now looking back to those eras. And I think the 1980s were very inspiring. And I do find that that you guys are doing a great job, David. Thank you so much with the Clarence House product. We were, you know, at the beginning, we're a little afraid that, you know, you might cancel everything, but, you know, you actually have pared it back to the best. I mean, I go in there all the time. I still go in there all the time. It's always the first stop I make at the D&D building. And, you know, all my go-to fabrics are all still there. So thank you.
And what I think
we
is great also,
we try it, and we're not perfect, but we really aim to do better and better all the time. And like Alexa said, we're not going to keep stuff that's not going to sell, but we absolutely know that there are a lot of patterns that have been lost through decades.
Sure.
And a lot of patterns that are very, very relevant today that may not have been in 1990 or the 2000s.
Sure, yeah. Some that
Right.
might be appreciated more today than, yes,
Right.
yeah. They were probably ahead
Exactly.
of their time. I know
And-
for sure Kazumi's design work is so forward thinking that people
So
might
great.
not even understand it at the time that they're looking at it. And then 20 years later, it's like the best thing ever.
And I think there has to be a correlation too with pattern and economy. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's no surprise that after 2008, pattern, wallpapers, a lot of embellishments that we used to rely upon on a daily basis disappeared. Or things would get dropped and reappear at another fabric house. It was a great reshuffle. And, you know, we needed to recover.
If you think about where America is right now in terms, and I speak of, you know, I moved home to Georgia 5 years ago, originally to take care of my mom. And now I just, you know, love it down here. So I'm staying. And it's fascinating to see the non-New Yorker's perspective, right? Because we have such a very small and very chic and very, of course, you know, one-way viewpoint. But when you get out into the hinterlands, like South Georgia, you see that people really want color. You know, we have a lot of color, more color. But what I want to say is where we are right now after 2020, you know, lumber, you can't get a piece of lumber now. It's like, you know, lumber is worth more than, like, you know, Ferraris. A home is where it is.
That is
And
true.
it's wonderful, right? America is ready, and hence, you know, it's designers for really great traditional, gorgeous quality, higher end fabrics. Like, I haven't had anyone complain about a price of fabric, you know, in a gazillion years. So we're glad that, you know, that's right.
Knock on,
wood.
yes, exactly.
Don't make a call. Don't make a call. But that's Clarence House's niche. And so it's just perfect to be able to re-engineer that. And like, I see that you guys have your ears to the ground. So you're listening, like, this works, this doesn't work. So I mean, how wonderful to take something that was just so sacred and make it wonderful again.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
also, when you think of the 80s, you think of kind of like these robber barons.
right.
It's white, it's male, it's, you know, these kings of the world.
Right.
And having this renewal of all of these patterns now in the hands of all of us.
Right.
And we're, you know, we're a different society with different people and all kinds of potential and possibility. To see those designs in our hands
Yeah.
will be thrilling.
2
Yes,
point
it's an
generation
amazing
2.0.
tapestry.
We're like really
Mhm.
excited about it.
Well,
We
that's
have a
We're ready
amazing,
to
question
guys.
from
open the floor to questions.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're
Anybody-
able to do that on the webinar. Are we
Oh,
able
we're
to do
not? Oh,
that?
gosh. Okay.
Danica, we can? We
I think
gotta
you're on
find
mute,
out
Danica.
how.
Yes, we can.
So if there's anybody that has any questions, please raise your hand.
Put it in the chat.
Yeah, send me a little chat box message and I will read it to each one of our panelists. But in the interim, I think, what was your favorite design element, or actually your favorite memory from the 1980s? So Elaine, tell me what your favorite memory is from the 80s. Of course, you were still in diapers, so you might not have a memory from
No,
that.
no, I wish that I was. I graduated from college in 1980 something. So, you know, I won't say.
Who
But, you
does
know,
the work?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, you could totally lie by a 20-year margin. You maybe should.
You certainly could. Okay, we have a
No.
question. We have a question.
Oh,
What
good.
was your favorite TV show from the 1980s for set
Dallas.
design?
Dallas.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a really good
Elaine.
one.
Crystal and Alexis in the pool fight. Yeah.
I mean, I
Completely
gotta go.
agree.
I gotta go with Love Boat.
I love the Love Boat.
I love it. And I
No,
wasn't
wait, the plane,
allowed
what
to
was the plane?
watch
The plane.
Fantasy Island. My parents thought Fantasy Island was too racy, but I was allowed to watch Love Boat.
That is hilarious. So anyway, getting back to your favorite memory from the 80s.
You know what? I moved to New York in the 80s. I went to college in Connecticut. I went to Yale. And then I moved to New York in the 80s. And it was all so new. And it was just amazing to see what, New York in the 80s was something to see and just to be living. I was still a publicist, and I worked on the DuPont accounts and whatever. And because I became a fashion publicist afterwards, but it was just amazing because they didn't have budgets, to work in New York. I mean, I guess that was the end of the 3 martini lunch, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It was Wall Street
hasn't ended
time.
yet.
Right.
I mean, we're not allowed to wear, actually, this is true until my father died. Women at the office were not allowed to wear pants.
What?
We had to wear skirts.
Oh, wow.
We had to wear heels. We had to wear stockings.
Eesh.
Yeah.
No
It was
pants?
headbands everywhere as far as the eye could see. Yeah, we were only allowed to wear pants during an installation. They had to be obviously pants in good repair. So we weren't allowed to chew gum, but we were allowed to smoke.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's
That's
funny.
amazing. We have another
Yeah.
question. Are you seeing a return in collections such as Majelica, chintware, and Kipper?
I don't know what that last one was. but
Camper.
absolutely.
Camper.
Kemper.
Is it or camper?
Camper. Yeah,
C'est
oui.
camper.
C'est en français, oui.
Oui. C'est camper. Yes. Tory Burch is just obsessed with that
Dodie Thayer,
Yes.
Yes,
The little
totally.
leaf.
lettuce wear.
Yes, that's it. Anything Tori's obsessed with, we need to pay attention to. So, yeah.
True, invest in that. Yes.
She's a good ambassador for past trends,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And that gives them new life, which is wonderful.
Right.
Yeah. Completely agree. Yes. And Alexa, your best memory from the 1980s?
Well, probably David, what you were just saying, like the Go-Go's and Madonna. Madonna came out in the 80s. Wow. I mean, this is, I was born in 1971, so this was extremely exciting time for me. I would go to Studio 54, which was not the cool Studio 54. It was the,
The resurrected
way
version.
passe, and I'd have to be home by midnight. But I still felt like I was in it to win it. And I'd go to Area, which was a great nightclub. It was very exciting because New York had cleaned up. So New York in the 70s and maybe the early 80s was dirty and had some sharp edges to it. And as it got a safer place to be, but not too safe, we would all go shopping down on Canal Street and McDougal and go to Pat Fields on 8th Street. It was really exciting. And I think that was also, that those are the years that you remember as a grown-up.
Yeah. Interesting. We have another question.
Yes.
Are you a fan of neon? Is it making a resurgence? How do you
neon
incorporate
color or neon sculpture?
Not specified, but I would say
I think
open
it's
to
color.
those. Yeah,
I
color
love
probably.
neon. I love neon shoes and glasses and lipstick, but not on my furniture. I like an Eve
Yeah.
Klein blue. No question.
I think it's important to sort of make an interior feel like you could last with it, and I think that neon would be something that I would get tired of. I agree with
Do you remember the movie Ruthless People?
Yeah,
That's what I think of as like horrible 80s decorating where
that
all
was
apartments.
the best interior.
Yeah, they all look like a Calder mobile come to life.
Right.
Hilarious. Absolutely.
Although I do think that you could do neon in a little boy's room, I think, or a teenager's room.
Sure.
I think that it has a place for that, like
Yeah.
rip stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a little
Something to
green
go with it,
accent
right?
on some Roman
Right?
shades for a kid's
Right?
room. Yeah,
We have another question. I'm reading them.
yeah.
Do you think the big window treatments like balloon shades, swags, tassels, helmets are ever coming back? Some people will tell you they never
went away.
I mean, yeah, I will tell
my
you
best
that.
friend, my industry uncle, Scott Salvatore, who was Mario's #1 assistant,
They're my curtains.
said
Yes, they're
he does
gorgeous
them
and
in every house
timeless.
he's in.
For me, tassels and swaggery have never gone away.
Right.
Agreed. I agree.
I would say that, remember, this go round in style, everything is really cleaned up and streamlined through that mid-century modern.
Yeah.
So it's, even if you were to have like a super, you know, like Asian inspired balance, it would still be very streamlined and cleaned.
You mean like if it were a pagoda, it would be
Right.
distilled to its basic geometry?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
right,
I also
right,
feel
right.
like Cabana and other publications, obviously Instagram, have helped do a lot of the reviving,
Yes.
because interiors that you might have needed in the 80s to see only in a magazine, you can now
Right.
find circulating.
Right.
We have another question. The new generations seem to dislike French country furniture. What's your thought on the longevity of this type of furniture? It seems to sell frothing now as the older
nothing.
generations.
Yeah.
What's that?
She corrected herself and wrote for nothing.
Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. Yes, for nothing. Sorry about that. Oh gosh.
I think those are just trends at the moment. It'll come back for sure.
Yeah.
And we can
It's
wait to see
just-
that Marcy has a furniture either store or line. So Marcy, you're good. Keep your inventory in the warehouse for right now.
Absolutely.
It's
Everything
selling.
comes back.
And
Oh, yeah.
also it's selling. I'm in Georgia right now, and I could tell you, if you were to paint it white, you could sell your whole warehouse in 24 hours in Georgia. If you're in the wrong place, if you're like in New York, I will tell you that south of the Mason-Dixon line, and the closer you get, like the borders, you know, I'm in coastal Georgia, south of Savannah. So if you're in the Birminghams, if you're in Waterfall, like on Florida, if you're in South Georgia, or like Palm Beach, paint it white. I mean,
And
if
that
you want to
actually
get rid of the
is
inventory.
a nice reference to, say, Michael Taylor.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure, yeah.
You know, great architectural furniture painted white, or even, you know, not in the 80s, but Siri
Right.
Mon.
Right.
And
Right,
I think if you
exactly.
really wanted to go for it, you clean up the wood, make sure it's filled and in perfect repair, and then lacquer it.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
But brown furniture has gone through a difficult time, but there will always be those of us who love it.
And it's coming back. It's coming back, you know.
It'll always
It's
come back.
definitely coming back. I think that, you know what? One of my favorite things to talk about is how America's taste level has changed, right? And you know what started it? It was the Pottery Barn catalogs in the 80s. Remember when those first started coming out? And that was so many people's, because we didn't have the internet. Not everyone got magazines at their houses, right? And so, you know, that was really, and people didn't travel. That's why everyone says, I want to look like my house looked like a hotel room. Back in the day, you traveled and you went to visit your friends in Europe and your friends in England, your friends, and they came here and people were so civilized. But now we just go to hotels. So, you know, people getting that Pottery Barn catalog, and then in the 90s, you know, that Restoration Hardware one.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right.
Is that the 90s or is that the
We can't-
aughts?
Wait for trade pros, right? We're not going to talk about that problem today. But I'm just saying it really helped. And then you have Martha Stewart with, like, you know, the organizational tips and that sort of thing.
And you can't forget Ralph Lauren.
Right.
Ralph Lauren was
and
many
Ralph Lauren.
people's first introduction to Edwardian furniture. They don't even know.
Absolutely.
When it first came in, it wasn't even identified as Edwardian. People would just say Ralph Lauren.
Right.
He
You know,
became the Kleenex of tissues.
Right. Right.
He was the Madonna of the design world.
The Q-tip.
That, you know, America's taste has increased, you know, whether we agree with it or not.
Yeah.
It's, you know, Diana Vreeland used to say it's not bad taste on mine, it's no taste.
Yeah.
So, you know, America's taste level has changed, and so
But
it's gotten better.
The baseline has changed, but
Right.
for sure. But I still, when I think of walking into Clarence House, I feel like, for me, the way it affects me is it does make me feel aspirational.
Yeah.
I feel like,
do you remember
what is
staircase
this? And
that
I'm
used to have in
learning.
there? They had a fabulous curved staircase in the Clarence House of the 80s and 90s.
And the wonderful deco.
It had like a chrome handrail. It was, and glass. It was very stylish, I'd say.
Jay Jeffers, who did that?
I think so.
Really?
We have another question. Open kitchens started in the 1980s. Do you think the pandemic finally reversed that trend? Interesting question, actually.
I don't think it's reversed it, but it's certainly put a line underneath the problems that come to any kind of open concept is that if we ever have to be at our computers and talking and working at a desk, an open concept can be trouble.
Absolutely. I've had so many home office projects this past year.
Oh yeah, for sure, including my own. We, desked up.
Yeah, completely.
I
What
think
is your?
if I may, I'm sorry. I think you'll be seeing a lot more pocket doors in them because pass-throughs are a no-no, right? Suzanne Kastler in Atlanta is the only woman in the entire, planet Earth who can make a pass-through look good. And so she's going to that's their next Clarence House seminar. It's like Suzanne Kastler does the pass-through kitchens. And so she only wants to know who can do them. But we're going to see more like strategic walls. You turn a corner and you can, have a pocket door there. So I think we're going to see that because definitely.
Yeah, we have to be nimble. We have to be able to transform our spaces as we need them.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. Well, versatility is key, and our design challenges are always evolving, right? Mm-hmm. What is your favorite Clarence House item from the 1980s? Can you think of one item that you are? Well, I know you mentioned your the wallpaper,
arts and crafts, toile de jouy.
Gorgeous, beautiful,
gorgeous.
And those épingles, the épingles that were the Art Deco ones.
Yes. Oh yes, yes.
I work for Peter Marino, and we used to order those like every week. David,
He still does. He still does, Elaine. He still does.
You need to look into that.
That's
and
amazing.
Was it a lot of Christopher Hodsell? Did we all have at Clarence House? When you walked in and you turned to the right, you'd have all the beautiful document chintzes.
Yes.
And then across from them, you'd have the linens like the arts and crafts and all of these sort of Babylonian gardens in linen, which were really thrilling.
Well, that's the goal, is to keep them being thrilling for you guys. And every time you walk into the showroom, it be one of these places that you go in for inspiration.
But you know why it was so inspiring? Because you knew it had been vetted and that it was in good taste.
Right.
If it wasn't in good taste, it wouldn't be at Clarence House.
Right.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Thank you, David. Thank you for including me in this panel discussion. It really is an honor.
Thank you guys for doing it. I know you all are so busy. And like I said, I mean, one last thing I have to say, I'm in Dubai and I've shown Clarence House for the first time in the Middle East. And I was terrified because every time I've come here in the past, it's been neutrals. Neutrals. No color. Even here, color is becoming a thing. Because
when did you first start going
to Dubai?
Yeah.
Since 2005.
Okay. Yeah.
I did an appointment there in
2007,
and they did tons of color.
Now it's back in Abu Dhabi, where I was today. All of them grabbing color, and I think they've gone. I think this year, I think we all feel it in the industry, is that this year of being locked up at home.
Right.
And not having to look at gray and neutral furniture and gray and neutral drapes forever is finally getting people to sort of realize, hey, I want a happy place at home. I don't need to just see
animation
gray everywhere I look.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think interiors, such as, I've said, sustainability is so key. You look at, Mark Hampton's interiors. You open his book today and it's as relevant today as it was when he first did the rooms. And it's all about the layering, and it's all about identifying the colors that are gonna, live the life and continue to give you that, the beautiful interior that makes you feel like you're at home. So I embrace that. I love color. I've always been a colorist, and ironically then worked for William Hodgins in Boston for 6 years, who was not a colorist.
But
I actually think he invented white on white.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for being with us today. Thanks to all the attendants for coming. Thanks for bearing with us with our little glitch at the beginning. And I really hope to see you guys as we go through the decades. And Elaine, we'll see you on Friday on our Instagram.
Yes.
Thank
With
you,
all the
David.
guys
Thank you
so much.
all.
Dude,
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Danica.
Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
David.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
So much
Elaine.
fun.
Thank you, Garrow.
Take care. Be
good
safe.
seeing you all.
Bye.